This is Green Blitz with your host, Joe Mauceri.
Oh, it is tough to be a New York sports fan these days. We are just 3 weeks into the NFL regular season. And unfortunately, I think this is probably where most fans thought we would be. Our producer, Justin, helping us out here to start the show. Welcome to the Green Blitz. I am Joe Mauceri, and we are back for week 3, trying to console you, trying to help figure things out, because as Aaron Glenn has told us, these are not the same old Jets. It is the same old Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter of the New York Post, who joins us each and every week, fresh off his flight from Tampa. Ryan, welcome to the show.
What's up, Joe? Another week, another loss.
But it is not the same old Jets.
No.
We're going to get into it. At least that's what Aaron Glenn wants us to believe. Here's what he had to say after the loss on Sunday to the Buccaneers.
Well, we're not the same team as what everyone says, same old Jets. These guys are going to fight no matter what the situation is. There's no give up in them. I hate that term. And I really don't know what that term means, but I know this. They're not the same old Jets. All right, so these guys are fighters. I love these guys. And listen, we know we have work to do. And I said this before. This is not an instant coffee team. All right, this is a team that's going to continue to keep stacking until we get to where we need to get to where we can consistently win these games. And again, I like where we're at, but I know we have a lot of work to do.
All right. Aaron Glenn doesn't know what the term same old Jets means, so I'll tell him what I think it means. It means a team that is never any good. Anytime there is hope, like there was in this game, that you might win, they find a way to break your heart in the most brutal manner. So Ryan Dunleavy, if that is the definition of the same old Jets, are these the same old Jets?
I mean, that was the definition of the same old Jets. Like, they looked like they were going to be listless and lose a boring, hapless game. Well, that's same old Jets. And then they came back, got you invested again, just like you were at the beginning, and then still figured out a way to lose. That's same old Jets. Let me read you a quote, Joe.
Okay.
This is a quote. "This is not the same old Jets, but until we win, until we prove it, which is on us as coaches and on us as players, the shots will keep coming. And so we welcome them. Keep bringing them. It's not going to change our mission, and that's to bring this organization and fan base a winner." Who said that?
I know exactly who that is. I think I was there the day he said it. Was that Robert Saleh?
It was the receipt keeper press conference.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like what Aaron Glenn said yesterday?
It sounds exactly like what Aaron Glenn said.
So Saleh couldn't change it. So Bowles couldn't change it, although he looks pretty good in Tampa now. Gase couldn't change it. So, like, sure, maybe Aaron Glenn could change it, but I don't know why any Jets fan should just blindly believe, like, we're going to do it because we have the right people, because everybody thinks they have the right people.
Yeah, and, you know, I understand that this is year 1, though, for Aaron Glenn, so it's going to take some time to get all of his guys in there. But he keeps telling us he believes in the guys that he has in this room, that these guys are committed to fighting here. This felt to me like that Joe Flacco game against the Cleveland Browns, where they threw 2 touchdowns at the end of regulation. The difference between that game and this game is the Jets won that game. And they actually gave fans a little bit of hope here. Now at 0-3, at least I feel like you can hang your hat on this. This season's over. We're looking at what we're going to find next season. But you look at the numbers here, Ryan. The Jets are -4 in turnover differential so far this season, okay? They have not forced a turnover at all. And the only teams worse than them right now are the Dallas Cowboys, who are at -5, and the Miami Dolphins, who they get to play on Monday Night Football down in Miami at -5. I mean, whether you look at the offense, who a week ago we saw Justin Fields throw for 27 yards. Tyrod Taylor looked competent down the stretch here, but then 2 big turnovers. You can't overcome that. What is going to change that is going to make people buy into this? We're not the same old Jets. That this is the tact, this is the path that Aaron Glenn is choosing to go down.
The definition of bad teams, Joe, is like you find a way to lose, and we see it in New York all the time on either side of either team here in this town. Like, one week your offense is great and you score 32 against the Steelers and you give up 34. And then your defense is good, they'll lose a game 10-9. And then when your offense stinks for the first 3 quarters, you're losing 23-6. And then your offense takes the lead and you need one defensive stop and you can't get it. So like, it doesn't really matter. You just do just enough to lose. You invent a new way to lose. One game they'll have 3 takeaways and they'll give it away 4 times, or they'll have 3 takeaways and they'll score no points off them. That's just what it is. That's what culture is to me. That's what needs to change. Culture is the most overblown term in sports, but to me, that's what culture is. That getting away from that, inventing new ways to lose. When the Jets scored with 1:49 left on the Will McDonald play, I turned to Brian Costello, my colleague, and I said, "Oh, well, they're still going to lose. There's too much time.
Too much time on
Like,
it. We said the same thing here in the Pix 11 Sports Department. Same
there
thing.
Needed to be 30 seconds left, and then I would have thought maybe, but a minute 49, I'm like, oh, you have no chance. And that goes. Honestly, that goes for half the league. Like a minute 49 in the NFL is an eternity with the way offense and defense is played. Any mediocre to bad team is probably going to give up a field goal. And if you're a good team like the Eagles, you're going to block the field goal and win the game.
And you know what? And I'm going to give some credit to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles, because you do have to be on the same page. And this is the 3rd time that they have done that this season, right? The Bucs are 3-0, and they find ways to win the game rather than lose it. But, I look at the fact then that this is said after a loss. A lot was made of Aaron Glenn dancing up and down the sideline after the block by Will McDonald, which I had no problem with. I actually love that he was dancing up and down the sideline. Forget about the fact that the replay value is going to be fantastic, whether they had won or lost the game. That is an image that's going to stick with us forever. But when he's walking off the field, and we were debating this, and I don't know if you saw it because you were at the game or if you've seen it since, but he was clapping. He was clapping, and we were going back and forth in a way. One of our producers said, I think he's happy. Oh, look, he's celebrating. He's like, hey, we had a good fight out there today. Good fight. A guy who says no moral victories is like, oh, this was a good fight. And I was like, no, that can't be. He's clapping because he's angry at something. He's trying to point at a referee saying you missed something or something. But then when I heard him in the post-game press conference saying that this was like a step in the right direction, we are not the same old Jets because we didn't roll over and give up the way they kind of did a week ago. How am I supposed to buy that as a fan base here?
Yeah, well, no moral victories only lasted for, a week or two, because when you're not getting actual victories, you need the moral victories. So, like, this is the progression that it goes, right? First of all, losing is never tolerated. Then, we lose a lot, so, like, close losses are tolerated. And then, like, then the next step, and then the next step, and then, like, oh, well, we beat one of our rivals, so that's a 1-5 in the AFC East is better than 0-6. And, like, that's how it goes. The standard just gets lower and lower and lower.
Does that resonate? Does a player who sees their coach clapping them up because they had a close loss think, okay, like, yeah, we are moving in the right direction? And I struggle with this because I don't know if I read a book. It's a Bill Walsh book. The Score Takes Care of Itself. Love the book. And it talks about when he took over the 49ers, and I think they were 3-13 that first year. But he saw signs of guys fighting. And I think down the stretch, right, it's early in the season. You're 0-2. The season's not over, right? You're supposed to be fighting in these games. You shouldn't be giving up in week 2. I get this in week 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Right? I get that because then you're seeing guys who aren't going to play usually. You're seeing the next generation, and you're seeing if guys are running through the finish line. But in week 3, when we're hearing this, are you buying any of it?
So 3 things popped in my head as you were saying that. One is I think the players did buy it because there was a lot of that in the post-game locker room. There was a lot of this team is close. This team is going to turn in the right direction. There was a lot of that, so I think they're buying into it.
Okay.
Two is I think it hits differently when it's your first year. They're 3 games into the Aaron Glenn regime, so his message isn't tired yet. It's not like they've heard no moral victories for 4 years or whatever, and nothing's turned. They're 3 weeks into it. They still believe in the guy. They still, they probably do feel like, oh, in the past we would have gotten blown out in that game, and now we didn't. So, like, it's easy for them to buy into it. The message isn't stale yet. Check back with me in week 3 of 2027, and then like. The third thing is Aaron Glenn. It's easy for him to believe it because I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but I think it was 8. I think the Lions were 0-8 his first year with Dan Campbell.
Yep.
And like he sees where that turned. So like that's what these coaches do. They build off their own experience, not your experience as a fan. So you're thinking like, oh, the Jets never get this turned around. I've heard this garbage before. But like he wasn't here for that. He was here as a player 25 years ago. He doesn't know what Bowles said or what Saleh said. So he's going off his experience with the Lions, which is like you can be 0-8 your first year. And if you have the right guys, it'll get turned around. And it's like, okay, but you don't have Goff and Gibbs and Brown. So like we'll see if you have the right guys. But it's easy to see why he believes it. The problem is like, yeah, sure. Brian Daboll believed it too, but he didn't bring Josh Allen with him from Buffalo.
Right.
So like, you know, you can believe you have the right players, but if you don't, you know, that's really what's going to tell us. And we don't know that after week 3.
By the way, if you want to talk about the Giants or hear about them, you can follow along on the Big Blue Blitz here on Pix 11 Plus. We break that all down as well. We do have to take a break right now, but when we come back, we are going to talk about the Jets' highlight moment of at least the season so far in that Will McDonald block. That's going to be after the break right here on the Gang Green Blitz. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
Welcome back to Gang Green Blitz.
Well, the Jets are 0-3 on the season after yet another heartbreaking loss down in Tampa. Here to break it all down each and every week is NFL reporter for the New York Post, Ryan Dunleavy. And Ryan, we have to talk about the moment that gave Jets fans this hope. And as we learned in Ted Lasso, it is the hope that'll kill you. Here's what Will McDonald had to say after he blocked that field goal and took it back for a touchdown, giving the Jets a 1-point lead after the extra point.
I won't worry about nothing. I ain't even trying to look back. I was just trying to catch my breath, to be honest, running down there because I knew I was going to be tired. But, I feel like it was kind of like a legendary play for me. Probably the best play I've ever made in my NFL career. I think it was like week 2, I went to go ask coach. I was like, hey, I think I can either come off the line or I think I can jump up the middle. And I think I could potentially block it this season. I can definitely get a couple blocks. And, we tried it out in practice. I was able to execute. Today we showed up. I was able to get that done. Scoop and square, put my team in a good position.
I love that they worked on this in practice, Ryan Dunleavy. I love that Will McDonald has the confidence in himself because he is a freak athlete, that he is willing to go up there, jump over the center, block that, and then just take it back the whole way. One of 5 block kicks, I believe, on the day in the NFL. What were you thinking when you saw McDonald make that play?
I was thinking that's why Abdul Carter's on the Giants block team. That's why a lot of these guys around the NFL are starting to have their best players on their kick block teams, because the best athletes, the best players make a difference. It's not just, the core special teamer 49th guy on your roster anymore. That's a guy who had 10.5 sacks last year. I saw it. I thought Chase McLaughlin, a former Jet, was 4 for 4 on the day before that. I thought the game was going to be over. Right before that, you know what I thought, Joe? I thought, why did Todd Bowles just give up 5 yards? Why did he take a delay of game penalty, then give up 5 yards? Did that make the difference in Will McDonald blocking the kick? I don't know, but it certainly didn't help. And then as he crossed the goal line, like I said, my thought was there's still too much time left on. There's still too much time left on the clock. But it was an awesome play by McDonald. It was kind of funny to hear him say it was a legendary play because no one's going to remember it. But I get what he was saying. It was the best play of his career, and that's for a guy who's had 10 sacks. That's not a nobody.
Yeah, and I mean, what he is a freak athlete. I think the Jets need to find a way to free him up a little bit more and get him more involved in this defense, because when you see him do that spin move around these defensive tackles in the NFL, I mean, he makes them look like average offensive tackles in the NFL, and I mean, he has potential to be a double-digit sack guy year in and year out for the Jets moving forward. So we heard what you were thinking when that kick was returned. Here's what former Jets coach, current Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach, Todd Bowles was thinking when it was taken back.
Oh, my thoughts were going from when we run for a touchdown. Excuse my language, like you got a me. What? And then after that, you see how much time on the clock and you calm down and you try to win the game.
Todd Bowles has become a little bit more colorful, and I'm not just talking about the creamsicle uniforms down there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He also had an interesting comment about his lover, which go check that out on social media if you haven't heard that comment from him as well. But when you hear Todd Bowles, first of all, when you see Todd Bowles looking like that, based on what he was when he was here with the Jets, he's smiling, he's cracking jokes, and still drawing up blitzes that seem to wreak havoc for the opposing quarterbacks. What do you think of the job he's done down there and the way he coached against the Jets yesterday?
He's done an incredible job. And honestly, the best thing he's done is hire sharp offensive coordinators. The guy there now looks to be really sharp. And his last two, Dave Canales is the Panthers head coach and Liam Cohen's the Jaguars head coach. So the best thing he's done that he could never do here, that no one can ever seem to do here, is hire a really bright offensive coordinator to handle that side of the ball. And then Todd Bowles gets to be like a CEO and a defensive blitz play caller. And he has somebody else do the offense. And like, that's the perfect formula. He can do that. I would like Thomas McGahee, who's a former Jets and Giants assistant coach, is the Bucs special teams coordinator. I'd love to know what adjustment he made. Because remember, they after that blocked field goal for McDonald, they kicked another field goal and had to win the game. Around the same time, the Eagles blocked 2 kicks from the Rams. So the Rams didn't make an adjustment on the Eagles. The Bucs obviously figured out what the Jets did pretty quickly, and 2 minutes later were able to block it. So the Jets couldn't go back to that same play or some offshoot of that play. Give the Bucs credit for that. And again, that's another good hire by Todd Bowles, because I know McGahee well. He's one of the best in the business.
All right. So let's talk about that Jets defense, because you said as soon as the the Jets scored, you said they left too much time on the clock. You look at it, and it's 29 points at the end of the day here for the Jets that the Jets defense gives up, but 7 of those come off a pick six, and another one they held the Buccaneers to a field goal after a fumble deep in their own territory here. So obviously, they don't make that key play or stop at the end of regulation here. But what did you see anything promising out of that Jets defense, considering the fact what they were coming off of in those first 2 games?
I mean, a little bit. Like in the first half, the Jets offense left them with a short field twice. There was a turnover on downs, and Tyrod Taylor had a lost fumble. So twice the Bucs took over on the plus side of the 50, and they got 3 total points out of those. So like, that's encouraging. As Thomas came in, the rookie, when Sauce Gardner was getting a concussion test, and he wasn't, immediately vulnerable during that fourth quarter. So I thought that maybe was promising, but no, overall, Joe, I mean, overall it was like bend but don't break for most of the game. And then when they absolutely couldn't even bend, they bent. And they gave up a field goal. So for the most part, it was an okay game. 22 points given up on defense, take away the pick six, is enough to win in the NFL. It's not spectacular.
Yeah. I look at yesterday, they only had 1 sack. And I think Aaron Glenn was asked about this. Hits. Yeah. But Aaron Glenn he had a good answer for this, I thought, when he was asked about it post-game. How many holding penalties did they draw? They did get 7 holding penalties against the Buccaneers. And, I was really thinking about that because, that is showing maybe you're beating them. And if they're not holding you, you're getting to the quarterback, and then there's a sack in that situation. But it just actually, hearing that made me rethink the value of a holding penalty. Because that loss of down, you get those 10 yards, right? But you get to replay the down. If you get the quarterback sack, you get, say, a 5-yard loss, 6-yard loss, 7-yard loss, whatever it is. But losing that down in today's NFL, where quarterbacks are throwing the ball all over the place, that extra opportunity, 1st and 20, isn't what it used to be in the NFL.
That's another thing I said. Another thing I said during the game, Joe, was on that first drive. If you remember, the Bucs got 5 holding penalties on the first drive, and so it was like 3rd and 29 or something. And I turned to my colleague and I said, the Jets should decline this or whatever. And they're like, well, then you're going to leave them in a field goal range. They're going to kick a 53-yard field goal. You got to take them out of field goal range. And I was like, no, decline the penalty, make it 4th down. Let him kick the 53-yard field goal. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because if you don't, if it's 3rd and 29, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get like a defensive holding call.
Yep.
And you're going to give them a first down. And sure enough, what happened on 3rd and 29? Sauce Gardner got a pass interference, even worse than a defensive holding.
And that was a suspect. That was the one on Mike Evans, right up the sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had questions about that, especially in that spot.
But that's it. That's what happens in the
Yeah.
NFL. It's like 3rd and 29, pass interference, first down. So, like, somebody said to me, Joe, a defensive coach I really trust said to me before the season, there's an old Bill Walsh saying, I think you mentioned Bill Walsh, right?
Yeah.
There's an old Bill Walsh saying, I think it was Bear Bryant, an old Bear Bryant saying, like, you put the ball in the air, two of the three things that can happen are bad: an interception or an incompletion versus a completion. That's not true anymore.
100%.
Two of the four things that can happen are bad, because now it's interception and incompletion versus completion and pass interference penalty, because there's so many of them. It's not 2 to 3 anymore. It's not 2 out of 3 anymore. It's 2 out of 4. And that's why teams are so willing to pass the ball.
And if you talk about pass interference, illegal contact, holding, right? There's so many penalties. Those 5 yards all result in a first down. And when you look at an incompletion, I wouldn't even say that's a negative. That's a neutral, like the net positive of all the other possibilities. You throw the ball up and hope your receiver goes to make a play.
Underthrow it, and your guy will run into him.
Yep. Oh, my God. It is crazy how the NFL has changed. All right. But the Jets aren't a passing team. They're a ground and pound team, because this isn't a passing league, as we heard from Aaron Glenn before the season started, right? I believe the Philadelphia Eagles were #1 in rushing last year, and they won the Super Bowl. So it is still a running league, at least in his eyes. But the Jets can't seem to run the ball. Look at the numbers for Breece Hall in this one. 9 carries, 21 yards. They're falling behind early in these games, and then they can't get the running game going. How do the Jets get this running game on track to be the team they want to be? Which, funny enough, reminds me of the same old Jets, only the successful version, I guess, of the same old Jets.
Yeah. Obviously, the easy answer to this is there weren't a lot of blocking lanes in this game. So part of that falls on the offensive line. But the easier answer, Joe, is like the score. This is the problem with playing the way the Jets want to play. Like, you cannot run the ball the way the Jets want to 35 times a game when you're down 20-6 at halftime. You can't. You have to go to a hurry-up offense, which they did, and it actually was pretty good. If you're asking me my takeaway, my most positive takeaway from the Jets, it was actually that in the second half, they played with some tempo and some pace, and they looked pretty good. I think they got off a play every 22 seconds in the second half versus every 29 in the first half. Like, that was actually pretty good, but that's not how they want to play. They looked pretty good playing a way they don't want to play. They want to run the ball 35 times a game. To do that, you have to be in the game or playing from the lead from the very get-go. That's their catch-22 here, is if they fall behind, their style of play does not lend to a comeback.
Quickly here, Fields is healthy. If he's healthy, is he back under center on Monday night against the Dolphins? Or are we going to see Tyrod Taylor again?
Yeah, no. If he's healthy, and I don't know that he'll have passed through the test yet.
Right.
But if he's healthy, he's the investment. It's too early to pull that guy. You know what Tyrod Taylor is.
All right, Ryan Dunleavy, the New York Post. Thanks for joining us, as you do each and every week. And remember, the good news, Jets fans, is you get to watch your team in prime time on Monday Night Football. The whole world will be watching. That's going to do it for this week on Green Blitz. We'll be here to commiserate at some point next week, depending on what happens on Monday night. Talk to you then, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.